And we want to celebrate Lanesville. We want to celebrate the community center. We want to celebrate spring. And Heather and I had a lovely conversation with Barbara last week. I don't know whether you all know Heather. Heather Atwood. But she wrote a lovely article in Wednesday's food page about Barbara, and we learned a lot of things we didn't know. So this lady has been a journalist since the age of 14, or was it 15? And the picture shows her with a big camera. And we've come a long way since then. So welcome to Barbara, and welcome to the Community Center. We are celebrating you, and we are celebrating Lanesville, and especially the Community Center where we are now. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about those early days, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about what it was like to grow up in Bayview.
That sounds familiar. I can talk a little louder. I'm so excited by all this. You're going to have trouble holding me down for 2 weeks. But if I speak in here, can you hear me? Yes. Oh, good. And Heather was going to ask me a question just to lead off with.
Okay, well, I have a question, but if anyone else has a better question, anyone out here with a burning question for Barbara Erkkila? Start. You will start? Okay. So Barbara, I was interested in Barbara telling us all what Lanesville and Bayview looked like when you walked out the door in 1939. You know, what we all see the black and white pictures, we think everything was black and white then, right? But what did it really look like? What did it smell like? What did it sound like?
Well, Bayview was a noisy place, but wonderful. And my grandfather lived in Bayview and on Revere Street. And that's how I got into Bayview, because I lived on Osmond Avenue in Lanesville when I was a kid. And
What was Revere Street called? You told me it was called something different.
Sam Porridge Hill.
Sam Porridge?
S-A-M-P, Sam Porridge Hill. And the old timers, my grandfather always called it that. And he had a Scottish accent. I don't know where he got it. He said he was going down the road. He never said road. And he never picked up a spoon. He always picked up a spoon. So we loved watching him. But anyway, his name was Stephen Decatur Jones.
And so why was it noisy? What was going on?
Oh, the granite company at the foot of the hill. You know, you come out of Revere Street, head toward Lanesville, and just as you reach the top of the hill, you'll pass Carolina's store, candy store, candy ice cream. And we knew that one. And as you got to the bottom, there were railroad tracks across the road for the quarry locomotive, the Paul Famous number 2. They had number 1, but I found only one picture of it, and I've got to have someone look at it to make sure it is number 1 before I run around telling everybody it is.
So what's a polyphemus? I'm confused. What's a polyphemus? Can you describe that?
Well, they named it Polyphemus because it had for its front light, which is one eye. And that's why they call it Polyphemus. And I don't know to this day who named it. I never did know. But I've seen the locomotive pulling a chain of cars loaded with granite coming out of the woods up near where Lee Natty lives, way up off of High Street, off of Quarry Street, is it? And, oh boy, and where was I?
Well, the quarry industry and what it was.
Oh,
what
yeah.
It looked like.
You come down the hill, and then you had to be careful because there was a huge fence in front of the big building where the cranes went in and out. One crane probably, I don't think they owned 2. They had one anyway. And that was a Rockport Granite Company at that time. And you couldn't stand near the fence because the stone pieces would come right through and you had to get them in the face. But we stood there anyway. We had to watch the van run in a surfacer, that was just pounding like this. And it was smoothing off the top of a slab of granite. And what a racket. We just had to listen to it. And then we continue on toward Lanesville, and you're crossing this, well, it's a creek, I guess. It's salt water. And it winds in off of Ipswich Bay and turns and goes under this bridge. And that bridge wasn't always there. It was built, I think, around I might give the wrong date, but it's the middle 1800s. And it was built by a man named Richard with Mr. Sargent. And they decided they were going to make it so you could ride across it and not go all around in the woods and around the place and come down another hill. And you wonder if you're going to just make a circle, come back where you started. But anyway, so they did do that. And what a difference it made. Otherwise, you'd still be circling around up in the woods.
So did the locomotive go from Bayview to Lanesville? Where did the locomotive, the Polyphemus go?
Polyphemus would start at Bayview Press out on the pier, ride through all the buildings. They had a big, long building. And cross Washington Street and get into where Granite Street is. I think it's Granite Street. There's one in Rockport too. And there it would go into the woods, go over to Bloodledge Quarry, and take the rail was laid down below the level of the quarry road. Because I know, because we used to stand there and watch it go by. And so that's as far as it went. It was Bloodledge Quarry. And I still don't know where it turned around. But it did. I saw it come back, and everybody was sitting where they were when it was that way. What a puzzle! I can see all these things as I say them, and I wish I could get you to see them the same way, but that's why I wrote the book. I said, a lot of these things, a lot of people know, and they know more than I do. I'm sure they do. But why don't I put what I know and then see what happens?
So how about Lane's Cove? Describe what, I love your stories about the fish houses, not shacks.
Right.
Oh, but that's all right to call them shacks, because people immediately know it's the Lane's Cove shack, and that's important, especially today when we're getting ready to. But that was originally a store.
The one we call the fish shack now.
George Moore's
not a shack.
Bless his heart. He had a flag flying every day on top of that building. I don't know how he did it, but he was terrific. And it was in the paper about the 3 socks. I don't know if you saw it, but he had 2 colors of socks. So he didn't want to wake his wife up early in the morning, to go out and see if he had any fish in his trap out in the bay. So he tiptoe in, open the drawer, and take 3 socks. Then he knew he had a pay. I thought that was wonderful. He told me that.
So Barbara, you told me about how the fish shacks, you could tell how old they were by, they didn't line up with the pier. I didn't quite understand it. So
I don't wonder because I don't remember saying it. Well, some of them were brought up from Folly Cove because people were finding there's more going on at Lane's Cove. And the fellows, although they lived down there, decided that, well, we'll bring them up. So somehow they got them all up. They got a place to put them. So although that you could count 12 in the front, that doesn't mean that we're a lot more behind them. There were.
So what was the culture like of hanging out in the, I mean, you talked about going down on Sundays and the fishermen would go down in their dress clothes.
Oh, yes, on Sunday.
On
I think they
Sundays.
were having church down the cove. Really. Those men were so careful how they looked on Sunday. And they'd come down, and maybe some of them might go in Duke Toretta's place and play cards. But that's all they did. And some of them might sit outside. There's nothing like sitting on an upturned dory. Don't you know? And it was just wonderful, and then because they loved it when people came down to talk to them. And they'd tell them stories. And, oh, it was just wonderful. And they were there, and they went home to dinner, most of them, but they came back again.
And you would go down as a reporter to get the story, right? To check on what they were talking about.
I just happened in lots of times, you know. Nobody invited. I went into Duke Toretta's place because he was a leader, and you know, he was the one that they even had business cards that said Lane's Cove. What they said, I forget the name of the. Well, anyway, it was Lane's Cove, and I have a card signed by Duke that he gave me. That it was.
Now, who was Duke? He was one of the fishermen?
Yes, he
Yeah.
was mostly a lobsterman because he lost it. Was it his left arm or his right? Do you know, Steve? My brother knows. Well, anyway, he lost one of his arms. No, not his whole arm. And he always had it covered. And naturally, it was waterproof. And bless his heart, he went out and pulled. He played baseball. Now I know it was his left because he played baseball and he pitched.
With his right? With that
With
one
his
arm?
right. He just had, I've seen him.
Yeah, Mike was
Yeah. Tony, we need you.
Yeah, I thought you'd ask. But it was great watching. You know, you could watch everybody. They do something and thank you, Dad. Yeah, and so people used to come down and count the fish houses, fishing shacks. No, they were fishing houses. I looked at my notes on an interview with Captain Marchant, who had one of the best ones there that held up the longest. And his was built in 1840, and that's when his was built. And I've got a picture of him working in the window. He was known as a little bit grouchy, but he wasn't. You talked to him, he wasn't grouchy at all. I suppose you were interrupting him when he's baiting hooks.
Okay, so I want to leave Lane's Cove now. Now I want you to talk about being a journalist. Is that okay?
Oh, what could I say about that?
All right. I'm going to tell you what to say. Okay, your best story and your worst story. Whatever that means.
I could think of a lot of words.
All right, so let's start with that.
I don't remember now what they were.
Any of you who got in trouble for writing? Anyone get mad at
Well,
you?
one woman wrote me a letter. She didn't sign it. She says, I see you go by in your old Ford car or looking at you as though you think you are the whole world.
She didn't see you on your Harley though, right?
But you know what I do? I have another letter from that wonderful woman who lived in Bayview, Eleanor. Oh, anyway, her father was captain of the Albert Baldwin. No, I still can't come up with the name. But and Eleanor wrote me this, oh, what a beautiful letter. So I kept the two of them. And when I felt down, I read Eleanor's letter. And when I thought I was getting a little bit, I still have them.
So how about the Gulf of Maine shrimps?